Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to be focused on a challenge that many of you are probably actively grappling with. While we understand that passkeys provide phishing-resistant authentication, and we all should be using them, there's a whole spectrum of an account lifecycle to consider. I'm Megan Shamus. I'm the CMO of the FIDO Alliance. I'm so happy that you're with us today. Today's topic is the spectrum of authentication, and we're going to be focusing on how BankID Norway unifies passkeys and biometric liveness. So when I say there's a whole spectrum of account lifecycle to consider, we can put passkeys in place. They provide really great phishing-resistant authentication at the point of the sign-in. But at the same time, identity verification threats are accelerating all around us. We see, AI-driven phishing and deep fakes, increasingly sophisticated injection, impersonation attacks. These things are moving very, very quickly. But at the same time, users expect that their digital experiences are easy and seamless without friction. And so that combination of attacks versus what your consumer customers or employees require means we can't rely on one single point of control in a solution. Instead, we need to be looking at spectrum of identity assurance around the entire life cycle. And if you've joined us at Authenticate in the past, you know that that is really the focus of the content that we provide there. And so I'm really excited to delve more deeply into that. What makes today's conversation really valuable is that we're not talking in maybes or possibilities. We're talking about a real world deployment, which is BankID Norway. I have had the pleasure of getting to know the BankID Norway implementation for several years now, and I believe it really represents one of the most mature and trusted digital identity ecosystems in the world. And it's used every day for millions of citizens for banking, government, and other services, including in-person payments. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But this is a very mature implementation that has really shown how important it is to look at each part of the user account lifecycle and ensure that it's safe, but also easy to use. So in this session, we're going to be exploring how BankID has evolved over time, combining phishing-resistant authentication with passkeys, with biometric liveness, to overall strengthen the whole identity assurance from an end-to-end perspective. Before we get started on this great topic, I have what everyone's favorite part of the webcast is, which is the housekeeping notes. So welcome to On24. You'll notice you're in listen-only mode. You have widgets that you can make bigger or smaller, make appear or disappear, but I would urge you to keep the slides widget open. That's where we're going to be showing our presentation today, and the media as well, so you can see all of our lovely faces. But you also have a question widget, so we will have time for Q&A as we go and at the end. So please feel free to ask any questions that you have, and we will get to them either later in the webinar or in real time. We are recording this webinar, so don't fret. If you miss anything, you'll have immediate access to the recording as well as the slide deck following the webinar. And then, of course, if you please stay on, take the survey at the conclusion. This is what guides the FIDO Alliance in the topics that we cover, and we want to ensure that we're giving you the information that you need from the Alliance. So those are the housekeeping notes. So let's get into the next piece, which is introducing our two wonderful speakers today. We have Ove Morten, who is a product manager for BankID Norway at STA, and Joe Palmer, who is the CIO of iProov. Morten and Joe, could you take a moment to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, hi. Hi, everybody. I'm Morten. I'm, as said, project manager of one of the aspects to BankID in Norway. And I'm currently project manager, taking the holistic view of the product itself. I'm coming from a technical background. That gives me that aspect of it, not from the business side.
Thank you. Joe?
Great. Nice to meet everyone. Joe Palmer, Chief Innovation Officer at iProov. I've been at iProov now for about 14 years since its inception. So I've been on a long journey from the original liveness focus we have, which is still our core product, Lived in the US for a while, in a market-facing role, helping put up the US office and understanding problems that people have that biometric liveness can solve. And now run an innovation team looking at how we can combine our liveness solutions with other technologies like passkeys and provide more complete solutions. So yeah, very nice to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Well, thank you both for being here. I'm going to pass over to Morten, who is going to talk to you about the BankID implementation. So take it from here, please, Morten.
Thank you very much. So today, I'm sorry about the background on some of the images there. My compression, because I needed to ship this PowerPoint, made that black. It should be green overall, but that's it. I'm going to tell you a story today about how we in BankID has evolved some of the prevention methods we need to be able to protect the end users from fraud in the Norwegian eID digital society. And first of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit about BankID, quite short. BankID in Norway is a multi-purpose eID and a signature solution. It's commonly used across both public and private sector, and it is governed by the banks who is the issuers of BankID. BankID can be issued to any person above 12 years, which is a part of the Norwegian population. It is a federal solution based on mutual trust between the banks. And the banks, aka the issuers, have created a trust framework within between the 6 issuers, so that every one of the issuers can base the same trust upon one eID issued by another issuer in the same trust scheme. And by the way, that is also something that ADAS is trying to achieve across borders, not only across issuers within a country. It is offered to all citizens, currently only bank customers, but we are doing a change there, so we will also be able to issue BankID to non-bank customers. So we should offer it in commercial terms, both to the public sector, banks, and to the service providers in private sector through a network of resellers. The key figures and facts here is that we have approximately 4.7 million users, unique users in Norway. That is among a population of approximately 5.5 million. Every unique user of BankID, in average, uses this BankID for authentication 212 times a year, leaving us with a total number of close to 1,000 million transactions in 2025. The transactions spanning from pure authentication, signing, doing identity checks or identity verification solely or isolated. And also we do have a new aspect with the ID card, bringing digital ID on the physical aspect when, for instance, showing your age, buying wine or alcohol in licensed shops. It is launched. BankID was launched in 2004, and today we have usage that basically you can use it everywhere. It's authentication for all public services, and if some public services isn't digital, it's more or less an exception. You can report file your taxes, apply for student loans. You can even change your name in minutes and file your divorce papers as well. So it basically governs the whole life of an individual person in Norway, possibilities to interact with digital services. That is, it's the huge advantage of it. also one of the risks, right? If it gets fraudulent, then it's the damage to an individual person is quite devastating. BankID was launched in 2004, as said, and in 2012 we had public service using BankID as well, and that enabled the digitalization of Norwegian services and also the continued growth of BankID itself. Moving into the reasons why we are here today. And in BankID and in a lot of EID schemes around there, we are commonly looking at the aspects of preventing, detecting, and responding to the threat landscape and the risks for each individual, and also, of course, the services that rely on BankID to protect itself. And in every aspect, we do look at have a real monitoring of the fraud, and that is also the triggering point for why we have been going for a mobile-first approach for phishing resistance when it comes to the authentication part. Having BankID on mobile already in 2009, which basically stored your keys on your SIM card. And also evolving into the BankID app in 2021. With the growth of the BankID app in 23 and 24 up to the numbers we are having now. BankID on mobile in its peak was 2.5 million users using BankID on mobile. And now we are at a peak of 3.8 million users using the BankID app as the authenticating factor. In our anti-fraud system, we do detect any transaction that is done with BankID. And since the threat actors commonly try to utilize an EID for more than one purpose at a time, because individually, like the banks, have been really good at protecting the bank accounts for fraud. But if you look at it from a total perspective of multiple institutions like bank, credit institution, public service, and telecom, if you can utilize a frauded if you fraud somebody from their EID and you can utilize it on all of these aspects, then the impact on the person is quite devastating. So we do monitor every transaction, and that gives us a unique insight on the transaction and can then detect what we call fraudulent patterns. Utilizing device IDs, etc., non-personalized information, but being able to detect information about every transaction so that we match it on the fraud patterns. And a fun fact there is, after I'm going a little bit further here, after we took the phishing resistant biometric solution in place for activation of the app, we have one instance where an alarm went off due to fraudulent suspected fraud, and that person had used our ID check with NFC and biometric to activate that app. When we analyzed that situation, we found that it was probably actually the real the fraudster's real identity being used in that case. And as a follow-up, that is done by issuer. We don't know the end of that story yet, but that could be investigated as a police matter, and that is advancing into the solutions we made. But looking at patterns, and we saw that fraud was growing a little bit in 2023, with respect to the process of binding the BankID app and rebinding the keys to the actual person. So moving into that, we needed to do something about that process, and that process itself is needed to be phishing resistant, as the authentication factors also are phishing resistant. It's often an overlooked and maybe underestimated problem looking at the account recovery or rebinding of keys going on in the ID lifecycle. It has impacts on the security, as we can see from fraud reports and our anti-fraud system. It has also implications on the cost from the issuer perspective. And it has, of course, implication on the usability of the eID itself. A known triangle in account recovery is called the iron triangle. That has the three aspects of usability, privacy, and security. But looking at it from the issuer perspective, I also think we need to add one more thing, and that is the economical viability of the processes itself. So the cost of account recovery mechanisms plays a role here. And if you can find the good solution between balancing these aspects, then you're in a good place. So what we looked at from the BankID perspective, from account recovery mechanisms, was that we did have some that was not really so good phishing resistance. And so we had to add friction in other ways, like quarantine times, etc. And that kind of ruined the user perspective. Or we had manual or man in the middle, human in the loop situation for account recovery, which is not good for the economical viability and also a lot of friction for the end user. And a human in the loop is really hard to detect newer fraud patterns, etc. So we had to design a good solution for account recovery, and I'm going to talk mostly about the account recovery of rebinding keys in the BankID app going forward. So how do you actually prove who you are remotely and unattended? In Norway, at least, we are kind of fortunate that we have a large adoption of NFC readable ID documents. And I do think actually that the last non-NFC readable passport was expired in 2024, as I assume. So the adoption of ID documents in Norway is quite high, and that gives us the ability to, for most people, create a really usable flow of doing account recovery with a high degree of security in the identity verification process. Combining the risk assessment of what kind of documents to allow, and doing that with a biometric solution that has a good process of threat analysis, threat intelligence, and detection of fraud patterns, and the ability to prevent that, gives us the ability to have a secure solution for a large amount of the population in Norway. And as you always said, Joe, it's not a silver bullet that can bring account recovery, but everybody, because some people do not have a passport, some people do not have an ID card, and that is needed to be handled by other mechanisms. But today we're going to talk about the biometric and NFC-based ID verification. So we did create a new verification process that is available in the app, which is basically what I call it is an instant EID with presence guarantee. It's quite easy for the end user to use. We don't have any recorded queues on the customer service to get help on this one. It's intuitive and easy to use, and it goes quite rapidly for the end user. They're also quite used to using these kinds of patterns to present a document and do the biometric scan due to BankID having used it for a long time. Also for purposes for the financial institutions to doing re-documentation of identity for their customers. Our experiences thus far is since we gradually introduced this in the mid-2024, we do have, as I said earlier, 3.8 million BankID app users. All of these have device-bound keys. And that limits the possibility to do account recovery by, for instance, doing iOS syncing of the keys. That is an active choice due to the risk of BankID falling in the wrong hands. We find that device-bound keys is the best fit for us. And we see that estimated 50% or every second year, a user will need to rebind its new keys to a new device due to lost or stolen or just wanting to swap out their old phone with a new one. So in the last time, we've done 1 million activations with the NFC biometric identity verification. And that is, at the moment, approximately 50% of everybody doing an activation. We are gradually phasing out any other activation methods, but the ones that are there will also have a lot of friction. For instance, you need to go physical presence in a branch to be able to activate an app if you don't have the access to use NFC plus biometric. So the wider gate we can have for people to use the NFC and biometric combination, the better the user experience in using the BankID app. For the time used in this, we can see that, okay, the median time is 2 minutes to do a full identity verification using the new process. The fastest one for the last 30 days is 31 seconds, so it can be done quite rapidly. As I said, also not much questions about this process from the customer center perspective. That was quite quick, but the experience is we have 0% fraud using this method. We got from the cost perspective, we have a reported 35% decrease in total number of calls regarding BankID. And I must also say that we have a password reset as an account recovery mechanism that uses now this IDV solution here with NFC and biometric. That also helps on the cost perspective. And the conversion rates that we have exceeds our expectations by far. And we can't actually see any difference to talk about when it comes to age usage of such a solution. And I must also highlight that this is a solution now, and the threat landscape is evolving. And the detection part of the anti-fraud system is the key for us to introduce further friction or introduce new methods to do account recovery. But that also applies to our vendors when it comes to the document reading and the biometric by far, because the threat landscape there, and I'll throw the ball to Joel later on, is evolving quite rapidly. But staying one step ahead of the fraudster, have the early detection of new fraud mechanisms and the threat intelligence is one of the keys to stay ahead of the fraudsters and the threat actors in this EID arena today. So I hope that was explaining a little bit about our solution and why we needed to bring a phishing-resistant solution onto the table for doing account recovery, and how we detect and do threat monitoring for tuning those methods as we go along.
Thank you, Morten, for the presentation. So we are going to get into a bit of discussion now. There are a lot of questions in the question widget. So I think first there's several questions about just clarifying what exactly the technology is that your users can use, what type of passkeys they're using, where you have been, what they're able to use now, and then what you're looking at in the future. So a few questions are around, are they FIDO security keys? Is it all device bound? Can you just explain a little bit what the FIDO, how the FIDO piece is offered to the citizens?
Yeah. The FIDO case, this is not my topic of expertise when it comes to the FIDO keys, but the private part of the keys is stored in the app, and it's bound to the app after a successful identity verification through biometrics. And it's stored there as a part of that's a secure enclave, I think it's called in iOS, and it's not syncable in that way. There was, of course, Apple tried to ruin that in 2023, I think, but we needed to create an implementation of WebAuth. Now, here I might be mistaken, but we need to create some kind of WebAuth implementation to make that non-syncable. And here's probably you can arrest me, but I can't answer the arrest.
I don't have jurisdiction to arrest you, so don't worry about it. You might actually, you're the provider. You might be able to do that in the BankID app, actually. I wouldn't be surprised. But that's fine. And you know what? I think Heike's on the line, who probably could provide a little bit more detail on that if needed. So when you were looking at the spectrum for your citizens, and can you talk a little bit more about the threat model? And I think, Joe, you might also be able to weigh on this from what your experience is with your other customers, as well as what is happening by which the focus was we need to look at the account recovery piece and make sure that that is we prioritize the security of that part of the account lifecycle.
Yeah, it's as I said. I mean, authentication could be looked at as a solved problem in a way with passkeys and biometrics. But the issuance or the binding of that keys is the vulnerable and highly sensitive part. And to do so, you need to, identity basically means I'm the same as the last time. But if you don't have a last time, you need to create that from some kind of source. And that source for us is the document cryptographically proven credentials. And after that, we do actually prove that it's the correct owner of that claim that is present. And that's where Joe's technology comes into play.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? So having device-bound passkeys, fantastic. It's the highest security, requiring in-person creation of your BankID, fantastic. The highest security elements. But if you can go through an account recovery process that has a weaker level of security, then that is the place that the attackers will attack. So having cryptographically verifiable identity, the biometric and biographic data in the passport, plus the highest assurance biometric liveness you can get, is going to give you that high level of security and allow you to do account recoveries remotely and rebinding remotely. So yeah, you are among many customers who have chosen that model to support their users.
So I want to dig into this idea of liveness a little, the technology around liveness. So FIDO Alliance, we've always been very focused on user authentication. We do have a certification program for remote IDV. However, we've always recommended what you just said, Joe, which is, when and if you need to recover device-bound passkey, you should really rerun the original onboarding process. But that onboarding process has to be sound, or you're gonna potentially let in a bad actor. But what I want to talk about is sort of the state of this technology and what you see, Joe, in terms of so if folks were at Authenticate last year, and if you weren't, that's fine. We did a live deep fake when we introduced the show, meaning like some Stephanie Shuckers came out and we were able to live, it was all live, project my face onto her on stage. And that wasn't something we could have done the October before. And probably this October, we probably could do something even more sophisticated than that. And so could you just touch on sort of what the state of the technology is in terms of having to keep up with the attack vectors, and sort of what folks should be looking for when they're looking at, okay, we need a solution that involves liveness, but what should they really be looking at?
Yeah, it's a really great point. The evolution of attacks in liveness is accelerating more and more rapidly every day. So, 3 years ago, probably, maybe a bit less, the most common type of attack was a presentation attack. You hold up a physical artifact, a photo, a screen, a mask, something like that. But that is a time-consuming process to do at scale. The deepfake technology today, face swaps and many other techniques, are now so easy and don't require supercomputers or massive GPUs to run. And they're bundled up in really easy to use software that you can download. It creates a virtual webcam. You can click a few buttons and then you're up and running with a virtual webcam. Even iOS and Android, you think, well, a native, more locked down environment, you're going to be safer. But people have built the equivalent of the virtual webcams on both Android and even iOS to produce the same effect. So the ability to inject a video has become easier and easier. You don't have to be a cybersecurity expert to do it anymore. And the ability to generate a convincing deepfake is really easy. You don't have to be a biometric security expert or have a really expensive hardware setup. So that has created an explosion in the number of attacks. It's so easy to do that, let's give it a go, 10, 15 minutes and you're up and running, and you can try and attack. So this technology then can be used both to try and impersonate the person in their real presentation, their face, their biometric, as well as on an identity card. So if you hold up a driving license, or you hold up a passport or ID card, the face swap technology works on that as well. So it can update your identity. Someone else's identity can have your face on with just as little effort. So this is by far the most common type of attack. We see a huge number of attacks, tens of thousands of these attacks a day. And the technology is evolving very quickly. So the tools that you can download and use for free and quick and easy, they tend to be reasonably easy to detect because we've seen a lot of that type of data before. But there's hundreds of these tools and hundreds of these algorithms and hundreds of these techniques that can all be used together produces hundreds of thousands of different combinations of attacks. So it becomes very challenging to stay up to date with the evolving attacks unless you're able to see the attacks that are happening in real time. So if you run your biometric verification solution as a service, a bit like a virus scanner, virus detector, you're downloading virus signatures all the time. We see these attacks evolve in real time, and we're able to update our systems to manage the evolution of those attacks. So having a biometric liveness as a service and having that service be updated constantly. I think on average we update our algorithms 3 times a week, but completely invisibly to a customer. The customer doesn't much change anything, no new integrations, no new SDKs. That allows us to maintain the level of security that we have created, and allows the customer to just sit back and enjoy the service being maintained at that level.
If I can just
with the takeaway, around, yes, Morten, go ahead.
Yeah, add in the implications of that for us as an EID provider is substantial. I mean, what we're doing now is that we're creating methods for doing account recovery that are scalable. And if that method is then vulnerable to scalable attacks, for instance, imagine what that could done to an EID scheme for the whole population of Norway. We would have to re-key every EID after such an attack. That's kind of a doomsday scenario. So that could keep you awake at night.
Right. So, the takeaway really with, the attacks are not static. Solution cannot be static, period.
Exactly.
Stuff is just moving so quickly. Wanted to just touch more on your adoption numbers, which are obviously really, really impressive. And the amount of things that you can leverage BankID for. First question is, how do you talk to citizens about BankID? Is it just sort of like a recognized brand at this point, or how have you introduced this to folks that might be in varying socioeconomic places or varying knowledge of technology to get them on board with leveraging BankID? Is there any tips or messaging that worked for you to get to such a large amount of adoption?
Yeah, the adoption is, I do generally think that the cooperation between the issuer being one of the strongest kind of users of digital solutions in the beginning, the financial institution, everybody has some kind of relation to a financial institution. And then them being able to cooperate, not looking at it as identity as a competitive advantage, but rather a kind of a shared service, and a shared service that I need to keep safe for everybody. That is basically, in my opinion, one of the key drivers, and also one of the key drivers for why it's adopted by public sector. They find this trust framework safe and sound. And that gives the ability for having trust in the society as a whole. But that is also very fragile, right? So losing that trust is dear to us not to do. But the general aspect is strong drivers, or what we call merchants who use this EID solution, gives the adoption rates, and keeping that trust also gives the adoption rates among the public. I think we are number 5 amongst the top known brands in Norway now. That's quite unique for a service that shouldn't be visible in a way.
I heard a rumor that you're higher than IKEA. Is that? Is that true? In terms of brand
Well, I
recognition?
can't talk about marketing. I'm not familiar with how they do it, but well, we spend some money on marketing as well, and especially when it comes to some big happenings. We got some commercial on TV actually got a silver medal in there, so they are pretty good.
Yeah.
I must say, yeah. Mm.
I also like how you talk about the need for continuous authentication. So with BankID, for our audience, there are so many things that you can do with it, that some of these things are like time-intensive processes. Of course, my favorite example is filing for divorce, just because I find that to be fascinating that you can do that through the BankID app. But also, things that like filing taxes or whatnot, things that could, could take so much time that there could be some, what we call like friendly fraud, or someone coming in the middle of that or whatnot. And so with that continuous authentication, do you, for example, if there's some anomaly in the session, are you giving them prompts to re-authenticate, or how are you like handling those kinds of issues if they arise within a BankID session?
Yeah, you're completely correct, Megan. The continuous authentication or identity continuous is a popular word these days, but it's about closing the loop, right? It's about closing the loop from doing all the necessary means for prevention of fraud to actually detection when something or when the prevention actually fails, and doing a rapid response, and that is for us continuous and especially important when the usage aspect of that EID is broad, as you can say. Suddenly you can find yourself divorced without even knowing it, right? but that is used continuously. We monitor with respect to looking for fraudulent patterns. And once that pattern arises, the immediate response is doing an alarm. And in some cases now we actually stop transaction in flight, meaning that the detection is so rapid that we can stop that transaction from actually going further. So the next step is then using that detection, those alarms, and the new threats that we see to modernize the prevention in the first place. And that's actually what has happened here during our revolution of the processes for account recovery. And we're going to continue that. But it's not a shining bullet. You can't put a shining bullet on it and do not detect anything else. You find yourself secure, you think. And that's the same story as Joe says. It changes. It rapidly changes. Detection is key element here.
So Joe, is that how you sort of see the complementary nature of passkeys and biometrics and liveness solutions working together sort of through this idea of like continuous authentication, or do you have other thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think passkeys and biometrics complement each other really well, because particularly with device-bound passkeys, you've got a deterministic absolute nature of them, which is great. When you present a passkey, you can be extremely sure that it is being issued from the same private key in the same secure enclave or trusted execution environment as it was when it was issued. So you can have a very high degree of confidence that that device is the same device as it was. But of course, the challenge with that is that if someone else has access to that device, or if you lose that device, that absoluteness is now also can be a threat, or it can be a challenge if you don't have access to it. So recovering or complementing with a biometric, which is a probabilistic test, but fundamentally is bound to you as a human is a great way to either provide a step up if, for example, a fraud flag fires. Fraud flags are probabilistic again, so you're going to have some false positives. So having a simple step up and allowing the transaction to continue if you do a biometric check is a great way of handling that. Or if you lose your device or get a new device and you need to rebind your passkey to get back to that original state, again, using that biometric associated with an alternative possession factor, fundamentally your passport or ID card with a cryptographically verifiable identity in it. A fantastic way again to rebind and reset up your BankID. So yeah, great complementary, both also phishing resistant. So again, you're only as strong as your weakest factor. So if you have fallbacks that are with weaker factors like OTPs or something like that, then that's what the attackers are going to attack. So if you want two factors, two strong factors, two non-phishable factors, biometrics and passkeys is the way to go.
I find it to be kind of the perfect friction point. I said on the onset of this, people don't want a lot of friction, but they do actually want that sometimes when they're doing a sense of like a highly sensitive transaction. They feel like, hey, you actually should be making sure it's me. We see that like in our UX research, for example, where, re-authenticating with a passkey could be sufficient in some way, in some instances, but they're needing to sort of verify yourself in certain instances, I think actually gives the users a little bit more confidence in the solution. And I don't know if either of you kind of have seen that or Morten, if you see that with the citizens around like their adoption of this and like their trust in the implementation. Any thoughts on that?
I can't show any figures here around it. I have some thoughts and observations, and we do agree that at some certain point, having friction actually is good usability because the user expects it, and we are currently also looking into could we utilize biometrics with or without liveness and etc. in certain areas for adding small friction points. As I said earlier, we can stop or we can mark suspicious transactions. We can actually intermediate with them, doing step ups based on like thresholds if it's a large volume amount. Or we could also have step up giving that we have an extra fraud signal on this transaction, and those kind of means for limiting fraud is highly in our focus right now. So it's next steps moving forwards, being proactively integrating fraud signals is really what we're doing right now.
Yeah, I can say just from our other customers, they have also said that when you're doing something big and important, actually doing something explicit, a reassuring ceremony to prove that you are doing, you are authorizing this, does give comfort and is wanted by customers. I certainly remember buying a house and phoning my bank and transferring hundreds of thousands of pounds and realizing that that was actually a bit scarily easy. If someone had known the information that I was asked challenged for, they could have done that to themselves maybe. So when it matters, I don't think it's an issue. In fact, I think it's a plus from a user perspective.
I agree. There's a few questions in the Q&A regarding EUDI and how STA is looking at that with BankID. Any thoughts on that in terms of meeting the requirements that are set forth for the EUDI wallet?
Yeah, I have some thoughts around that, and It's currently not accepted, for instance, to do a full remote onboarding or the first-time issuance of an EID under this wallet with remote onboarding, and that is a regulatory landscape that is challenged and changing. Of course, remote onboarding introduces some aspects to threat, but it also remediates a lot of them. So it's we have to find a good solution there so we can, in my personal opinion, excel the EU wallet to be able to have a success. So currently, it looks like IDV for EID wallet is currently not accepted from a compliance perspective. But I do know that some of your colleagues, Joe, have looked at the actual risk and threats around this and have opinions about it.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one because across the different EU states, you have a different situation, and you can, if for mutual recognition of EU digital wallets, you can only your sort of smallest denominator, if you like, has to be the baseline. So if you don't have an image, for example, in available either in your national identity or in your ID cards in a digital format, using that as a reference for kind of like an IDV, but referencing back to the system of record, it's not possible, therefore it's not mandated, it's only optional. But countries that have implemented the higher assurance identity verification with strong biometrics against a trusted reference image, the requirements are effectively below the real world security that they've actually implemented. So some of our customers in other jurisdictions are looking at complying with the law in terms of accepting EU digital wallets, but then requiring effectively the passport scan and biometric check as an additional step to maintain the level of security they've built into their systems today. So yeah, it's a tricky one. We're heavily involved in those conversations, obviously not as a nation state, but as a interested party and contributor to the technologies that are available.
But basically, I was adding also, the EID wallet is basically a trust framework that can be agreed upon by everybody that we can place our trust upon. And given the success in Norway with the 6 different issuers having a trust framework to have mutual trust between all the processes in these EID schemes, the key for success is that the trust framework actually gives trust mutually between the parties to find that trust framework.
Okay, with just a little under 5 minutes to go, let's see. Well, I guess so. Morten, what's the roadmap? I mean, what's next? What's highest priority for you in terms of next step for features or functionalities for BankID?
Next features and functionality for BankID. If we look at it from my perspective, it's having all authentications and all processes being phishing resistant and safe for everybody to use. So it's, of course, we're getting also, I mean, just as we've seen the threats and have mitigations for that by introducing NFC and biometric, there's also regulation changes that push us also in that direction. So we're getting help for the importance of phishing resistance also from regulatory entities. Looking at that, we just formally introduced a new issuer of BankID, which is STÖ. So STÖ is going to be the new issuer of all BankIDs, moving all the issued BankIDs from the 6 other issuers to STÖ. So that, of course, takes a lot of our time now, the physical EID with the ID card, being able to move into shops with physical like age restrictions and so on. That's really on the roadmap. And generally keeping up the good reputation that we have. That means staying ahead of the fraudsters.
Thank you. So Joe, any last thoughts on how to create fish? So we talked, so passkeys, so I'm the CMO of FIDO. So yes, phishing resistant authentication is kind of my tagline of my life. But the broader piece is creating phishing resistant users or account holders. And that is, beyond passkeys, but can you just kind of leave our audience with some thoughts on, what to think about in terms of, creating your users to be, fully phishing resistant, which Morten just said is sort of the goal for BankID.
Yeah, and I think this is relevant across the board, whether it's your customers, your citizens, your employees, your contractors, partners. If you think about multi-factor authentication, Passkeys is a fantastic phishing-resistant factor, but the part of multi-factor authentication requires more than one, and so often giving people a choice seems like a good idea. So you username, password, and then pick your second factor. Is it a text message? Is it a passkey? Is it a OTP on an app or something like that? The thing is, you're only as strong as your weakest factor. So just because you've added a phishing resistance factor to your authentication, or in whatever context that is, it doesn't make your account phishing resistant. So the only way to really truly get to a phishing resistant account stage is to have more than one phishing resistant factor that you can rely on if you want to step up, which is very useful, or to fall back to if you can't use your passkey for whatever reason, it's device bound, you've got a new device, etc., etc. So I genuinely see, and I'm very excited about the future of biometrics and passkeys, because they together provide two phishing resistant authentication factors, and that is I see as a very viable path to getting to phishing resistant accounts and being able to finally switch off the cause of so many data breaches and so many bad things that happen in this digital world we live in with successful attacks, and actually finally disable those phishing susceptible options to log in or recover your account.
Right. So passkeys plus biometrics liveness, and liveness equal trust. And I would also say that it's unreasonable to think that most organizations can just deprecate all phishable authentication methods overnight. And so that's understood. There's going to be a time period where that is just going to be the reality. But I would urge folks to look at their users that are signing in with phishable authentication methods as a flag. If they're typically signing in with their passkey and all of a sudden they're trying to come in with something else, that can be leveraged as a flag, and that can be a prompt for step up perhaps. And so that's sort of the way forward, where, whoever thought a password would be, something that would be, flagging a step up, but that's how you should be looking at this, and you should be, and that's what's going to get to that fully phishing resistant in this, in this tail of the process to get to fully phishing resistance. So with that, so we do have a lot of questions. Some of them more in our technical in nature. So I was thinking maybe we could follow on some of these questions that just want a little bit more technical detail on the implementation. So if you ask questions and we didn't get to your question today, we will follow up with you. We really appreciate you being with us today. There was many of you and many great questions, so don't fret, we will follow up with you. And I just want to thank you, Morten and Joe, so much for this great session today. This was really insightful, and I think we have a lot of more things that we can do together to get the good word out around creating end-to-end identity assurance. So thank you so much for being with me. And thank you all for attending. And please do take the survey. And I hope to see you on a future FIDO webinar. We have a ton of them planned for this year, so please stay in the loop with us. And lots of good information to share with you this year. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.